The village had always been there, nestled deep in the mountains, far from the noise of the world. Time moved differently here. Seasons took centuries to change. Trees didn't just grow old, they became ancient. And people rarely lived less than 100 years. At the edge of the village stood a cemetery. No one knew how long it had existed. The stone graves were so old that names and dates had eroded into moss and dust. For generations, a single family had guarded this place, not as caretakers but as wardens. Khalid was the current head of that family. He was 122 years old. Time had carved deep rivers into his face, yet his eyes held something heavier than youth knowledge. He knew his end was near. According to tradition, when a guardian began to fade, every member of the family returned to the village. They all understood what it meant. The time of the key had come. On a storm-filled night, when the air smelled not of rain but of dust and old bones, the family gathered in the ancestral house. Khalid lay on his bed, his breath thinning with every second. From beneath his mattress, he pulled out an object. A key. It was forged from a dark metal, stained green with ancient corrosion. Its handle bore a shape that the human eye refused to understand. He placed it into his eldest son's trembling hand. Below, Khalid whispered, "The river, the door, must remain closed. Always." Those were his final words. That night, they carried his body to the cemetery. Their footprints vanished instantly in the wet soil. At the center of the graves, the ground sank slightly. The sun raised the key and it turned on its own, as if drawn by an unseen force. He twisted it in empty air. A thunderous lock echoed beneath the earth. The ground split open. Stone steps emerged, descending into a darkness that swallowed light itself. Every member of the family followed. It was their duty. The air below smelled of something unnatural, like the ashes of dead stars. At the end of the cavern, it stood. The door. Not wood. Not metal. A floating square of shifting blackness carved into the rock. Something moved within it. Many things. A formless lock hovered before it. The new guardian inserted the key. The sound this time was different, not resistance, but pain. The movement behind the door stopped. "It's sealed," he said. They left. They wouldn't return for another 100 years. But the youngest grandson couldn't sleep. He returned to the cemetery alone. There, in the wet soil, he saw it. A claw mark, not from any creature of this world, and it was moving outward. As if, during the brief moment the door was unlocked, something had escaped. That night, a window in the village briefly reflected the same blackness as the door. And then it was gone. Winter passed. No one died. Spring arrived. A farmer broke his wrist, a simple injury, but the bone rotted instead of healing. He died within a week. Summer came. 2 children vanished in the forest. When found, their bodies smiled peacefully, their eyes filled with crawling black specks. Autumn followed. The new guardian's wife was found dead in bed. Natural causes, they said, but bruises slowly appeared on her neck, thin, precise, like fingers that were never meant to exist. The grandson confronted his father. "It came out," he said. "Yes. This isn't the first time." "No. Then why do we do this?" "Because if we don't seal the door, what comes out won't be one thing. It will be a flood." The thing outside wasn't evil. It was hunger. Older than time. A fragment of what existed before existence knew itself. Their long lives weren't a blessing. They were a sentence. They were meant to watch. Deaths multiplied, each stranger than the last. A woman died staring into a mirror. A boy vanished, found hollow skin intact, nothing inside. The grandson saw it one evening in the cemetery. Tall, shifting like smoke. 2 pits where eyes should have been. And he heard it not in his ears, but in his bones. "How long will I be alone?" It didn't threaten. It asked. Years passed. Decades. He spoke to it now. Watched it. Counted its hunger. One night, it came to his window. "Look at me." He did. And he saw everything. A place before time. Before separation. Before hunger existed. The door wasn't a prison. It was a scar. The thing outside wasn't a monster. It was a broken fragment of unity starving to be whole again. That night, he made a choice. He gave it memories. Not flesh. Not souls. But experience. An entire village's joy, pain, fear, love. The hunger eased. The shadow left. For a while, peace returned. Before his death, he handed the key to his successor. "Don't just seal the door," he said. "Understand it, and sometimes, give it a gift." Now, a new grave rests in the cemetery. And sometimes, a tall shadow stands beside it. Not hunting. Not starving. Just watching. Because hunger isn't always for flesh. Sometimes, it's the hunger to be seen. And this cycle will repeat. Every 100 years. After the grandson's death, the village found a strange peace. The tall shadow almost vanished. Sometimes, faint sounds still drifted from the cemetery at night, soft, mournful, as if someone was grieving a lost friend. The new guardian was named Raffi. He was the grandson's great-grandson, now 120 years old. In his hands rested the same ancient, corroded key. Raffi read the journals of his ancestors, especially the diary of the grandson who had tried not just to guard the door, but to understand it. A gift, Raffi often whispered, staring at the cemetery through his window. But what kind of gift? One night, beneath a full moon that painted the gravestones silver, Raffi made a decision. He went to the cemetery, to the very place where his elder once sat. He carried an old radio, broken, useless, but inside it was a cassette. A recording of a forgotten village festival. Laughter, singing, life. The radio didn't play, but Raffi closed his eyes. And the song lived again inside him. A lullaby his grandmother used to sing. He began to hum, softly, wrapped in silence. And then he felt it. A presence. He didn't turn around. He kept his eyes closed and opened his memories instead. First love. The birth of his child. The warmth of his father's hands. Small, ordinary human moments. The scent returned, ashes of old stars, but this time mixed with wet soil and flowers. The song. The voice echoed inside his mind. Gentle, familiar. Yes, Raffi thought. It's our memory. Memory. Does it hurt? Yes. But that's what we are. Pain. Joy. Memory. Silence. Then an image formed in his mind. A tree. Ancient. Its roots reaching deep beneath the earth, touching the door. And inside the darkness those roots became light. Raffi opened his eyes. The smoky form stood before him, unmoving. Within it, tiny points of light shimmered like distant stars. Are you a tree? Raffi asked. We are, roots. Your roots. All of yours. The truth struck him. The door wasn't just a physical barrier, it was a division of consciousness. Once, humanity had been whole. Light went one way. Darkness stayed behind. What you call hunger, the voice said, is our longing to remember ourselves. You heard us, Raffi said. People die. Death is your word. For us, it is returning. We only pull, because we forgot how to come back. Raffi understood. This was not a monster. It was lost. Incomplete. Next time the door opens, Raffi asked. Will you come again? Yes. 100 years is our breath, but you are different now. Yes. We are no longer only hungry. We are curious. Raffi smiled. Then stay. I'll show you more. He sat and spoke. Arguments with his sister, hunting trips, rain on his skin, life. The shape drew closer, not threatening, just present. Moonlight passed through it, and for a moment, a reflection formed. Young. Strong. Raffi. Our youth. The voice whispered. Our hope. Then it faded. Thank you. The first time it ever said that. Raffi returned home changed. He gathered his family, shared the journals, taught them that guardianship wasn't fear, it was understanding. A new tradition began. Every full moon night, they gathered in the cemetery. They didn't perform rituals. They talked. They sang. They remembered. And whenever they did, no strange deaths followed. Years passed. Raffi reached 180 years. The door would open again soon. He trained his most gifted grandson Yaser. The key isn't just a lock, Raffi told him. It's a connection. You mean, we can be friends? Yaser asked. Not friends. Understanding. The night came. Raffi, now 201 years old, passed peacefully. Yaser held the key. This time, it didn't tremble. The door opened softly, and something new emerged. Light, a thin beam shaping itself into a tree. Roots reached out from the door, and where they touched stone, flowers grew. Dark flowers. But alive. We hear you, the voice said. We learn. Before the door closed, one thing escaped. A droplet of light. It drifted into Yaser's chest. Warm. Comforting. A gift, Yaser said. A promise. Above ground, beside Raffi's grave, a plant had grown, glowing faintly in moonlight. The waiting began again, but this time, there was no fear, only hope. Because now, this was no longer just guardianship, it was a conversation. A family learning to become whole again. And someday far in the future the door may open completely. Darkness and light reunited. No hunger, no waiting, only silence. And unity. Until then, the plant will grow. Songs will be sung under moonlight, and the family will continue watching, not just the door, but themselves. The plant kept growing. 10 years, 20 years, 50 years. It was no longer just a plant. It had become a small tree, its branches twisted unnaturally, as if floating in an unseen current. On moonlit nights, its leaves didn't just glow, they hummed. Not with sound but with memory. Anyone who sat near it felt a melody echo inside their mind, the same melody Raffi had once played. Yaser was now 160 years old. Every day, he sat beneath the tree and spoke to it. One day, he asked softly, "What is your name?" The branches moved gently. The wind was still, but Yaser knew this movement was not caused by air. "We had no name," the voice said. "Now we do. You gave it to us." "How?" Yaser asked. "Raffi, Yaser, family. That is our name." Yaser smiled. "Then you are family too." "Yes." The tree replied. "Family." A branch bent downward and brushed Yaser's shoulder. Warmth spread through him, deep, soothing warmth that erased exhaustion. Soon, others in the family began speaking to the tree. Each experience was different. Some received visions, forgotten memories returning like old photographs. Others dreamed of places they had never been, yet somehow remembered. One night, Yaser's granddaughter Lila, 120 years old, sat crying beneath the tree. Her child, barely 90, was dying. His hands were turning to stone. "How do I save him?" she whispered. The tree remained silent. Then, a branch snapped. It fell at her feet, but it wasn't wood. It looked like frozen light. Warm. Alive. Lila pressed it to her son's chest. Within a week, the stone began to soften. Within a month, the boy was healed. But his eyes had changed. He could now see colors drifting through the air, soft halos around living beings. It was the tree's gift. And every gift had a price. Each moonlit night, the one who received a gift had to return and tell the tree a story. A true story, of joy, or grief. The tree absorbed them all. Then, one night, the tree told its own story. Mist filled the air. Images formed. A world where everything was connected. Trees, mountains, humans, water, one consciousness. Then, a rupture. Some were pulled toward light, becoming life, death, rebirth. Others fell into darkness, left behind. But the bond never broke. It weakened. "We are the ones who remained," the tree said. "We forgot everything, except hunger. You moved forward. You remembered life, but you forgot your roots." "The door?" Yaser asked. "The door is a wound. And the lock, your ancestors placed it to prevent destruction. This wasn't a curse. It was treatment. A long one." When Yaser finally died at 190, a new sapling appeared beneath the tree. It looked like him. Now, the key passed to Nor, and when the door opened again, it was no longer open to seal darkness. It was open to reunite. Stories were told. Light was exchanged. Healing flowed both ways. A new seed was given. A new beginning. The door never fully closed again. Only a crack remained. A line of light in the earth. A connection. And someday, the door won't be needed at all. Until then, stories will be told. Gifts will be given. And family will no longer mean blood. It will mean worlds. This story is not over. It never will be. Thousands of years passed. The village was gone. Where it once stood, a vast forest now stretched across the mountains. And at its heart flowed something impossible, a river of light. The fracture had grown, no longer a crack in the world, but a radiant current rising from the earth into the sky. On both sides of the river stood trees, not ordinary trees, trees of light. Their trunks were transparent, their branches bloomed with luminous flowers. Among them lived beings, or perhaps, they were no longer human. They had once been physical, once bound by flesh and time. Now they existed somewhere between light and thought. At the edge of the river sat the last descendant of the family. His name was forgotten. His age was meaningless. He had become part of time itself. The key was gone. It had vanished long ago, the moment the door opened forever. And the door was no longer a door. It was a convergence. A place where two worlds had merged so completely that no boundary remained. Light and darkness formed a new radiance. Time and eternity collapsed into an endless present. Life and death dissolved into a single, shifting existence. The last one raised his hands. Lines of light flowed from his palms into the river. He could feel everything, every tree, every flower, every memory, every thought, and beyond what was once called the other side, those beings too. There was no other anymore, only one. He closed his eyes, and within him, the beginning unfolded, the moment when all things were one. The rupture, the elders who built the door, the lock, the guardians, the first fear, the first deaths, the first understanding, the first gift, the first tree, the first story, all of it existed at once. Because time was no longer linear, every moment, every feeling, every story, rested in the same point. The last one smiled. Within that smile lived thousands of years of grief, thousands of years of hope, and thousands of years of love. Then, He began to dissolve. This was not death, it was the final gift. His light joined the river. His thoughts sank into the roots of the trees. His memories drifted into the air. And now, there was no separate being left, only the convergence. The river of light, the trees, and the stories. Stories that never die. Every story has an ending. But this was not one person's story, it belonged to everyone. And when all stories become one, endings lose their meaning. Only a beginning remains. A beginning that never stops. Like the river of light. Like the trees. Like the stories. Still being told. Even though no storyteller remains. Because now, everything is listening. And everything is speaking. Forever. End. Beginning. Always.